Hello, I'm Meg Salyer, and I'd like to welcome you today to the Ward 6 Council Show. I am joined today by two of Oklahoma City's finest. I'm always so proud when I get an opportunity to do this. Lieutenant Whitten is with us, who's the supervisor of what we call the HOT team, which is our homeless outreach team, and Bobby Prater, Sergeant Prater, who's on the street every day working with the extremely disadvantaged population that we have in Oklahoma City living in camps or living on the street. So can we talk a little bit about how the HOT team originated?
At the time, my lieutenant, who is now Captain Tompkins, had heard about a Colorado Springs program, and so he started doing the research into exactly what they were doing in their city, and pretty much we modeled our program after them. And Colorado Springs, what they had is they had a camp with 600 people camping on the river in a high tourist area. The city initially didn't like it, and they were just at wit's end of how to shut it down or get rid of it. And they tried and tried. Well, they ended up deciding that they would come up with trained officer specialty and what resources are available for the homeless, for the chronically homeless, and they could go in there with those officers armed with that knowledge, talk to the people, offer them alternatives to what they were doing, and after I think about 2 years, there was 6 people left living on the river.
Wow, what a great success story, and we've certainly seen some of that here. I know working with Chief City that he has a passion for this subject as well, and so I think was quick to embrace the idea that there were some best practices in other communities that we could take on. And I just really want citizens to know what an incredibly impressive program it is, given slim resources and the fact that we just have 2 officers directly assigned to the HOT team. But Lieutenant, tell me a little bit about what you see as their supervisor during the course of a week or a day.
I've been their supervisor, their lieutenant, for a short period of time, but I've gotten to go out with them a couple of times, watch what they do. When I go out and see them interact with the homeless, I've gone to some camps with them, some people just on the street. They have been able to, just in a short period of time, establish a lot of trust. The homeless know that they are there. They know who they are. They know that they can go to them. They can turn to them for all kinds of different things, placement resources, food, clothing,
One
blankets.
of the things that I love is that in your squad cars, and I'm not sure this is just the HOT team, I think it's most of our police officers have food in their cars. And the HOT team does for sure. You've got food, you've got MREs, you've got pet food, you've got clothing. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we actually partner with the regional food bank, and they provide the food, the MREs for us, and we pick up cases of those. We keep them in our cars. When we find people who can't get to a food resource, because there's great places in and around the downtown Oklahoma City area, mostly the west end of downtown, that serve hot meals. You can get there's no reason you couldn't get 3 hot meals a day between going to rescue missions like Jesus House, City Rescue, or the day shelter, and even Salvation Army, the City of Hope. They serve at night. And
isn't that an amazing new facility?
Yeah,
over there?
that is beautiful. I mean, if you haven't volunteered or been in it, I would say everybody should take a look at what's in there, but we carry the food, and if somebody calls us and they weren't able to make lunch, or they think they're going to struggle over the weekend, well, we can provide them with MREs to get them through. We can give them, I think our greatest resource is transportation. Even today, this morning, I took a chronically homeless 23-year-old female to a job interview, and I invested about an hour and a half of time getting her to and from, and that same trip, trying to take a bus, it was on the south side of Edmond, so if she was to take a bus, she would have had to catch a connecting route from 23rd and May to the central facility down at 420 Northwest 5th to catch a hot route to the Edmond, and that would have taken her, she would have had to start her journey 2 hours earlier at about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning is when she would have had to start trying to get to her job interview that was at 10 o'clock. So I pick her up, I take her up there, she got the job, I gave her a ride back home. Yeah,
fabulous.
She was excited, and I hope.
Now, how's she going to get to work every day?
Well,
though?
that is a deal. She's been working with the church, and she thinks there might be some church members that will help her out. But also, I have some resources of some money that was donated to us through the Homeless Alliance, so I can buy her a 14 or 30 day bus pass.
Great.
So she will be able to make her work appointments, and And so that's just the first step. And if she needs work pants or work shoes or anything, I can help get her to some clothing pantries to get her squared away and get her back on her feet. And so, like I said, it's just the first
So
step.
who would sort of imagine that this is part of the Oklahoma City Police Department, which
And-
is so heartening to know.
Yeah, and that's a common thing with Sergeant Prater and Clint Garst, who is the other member of the team, is almost on a daily basis. They'll receive a phone call from somebody needing a ride to a doctor's appointment or to a job interview. So different things that they are able to provide that goes beyond. A lot of people look at police and they think it's just about enforcement, and we drive people to jail, but that's not necessarily the case all the time, especially with these two officers.
I think the approach that was taken here was such an important step to say, if we can begin to build some bridges of trust, which is a word I've heard from both of you, that we can perhaps begin to direct some of these folks to the services that are provided. And, you know, I want to continue to get the message across that Oklahoma City is so incredibly generous, and we have so many social service providers in a full spectrum. You mentioned a few of them, but who are some of the other folks that you work
there's
with?
tons. And you hear that term all the time,
Right.
Oklahoma Standard, and
Right.
and it just shows over and over again. You have the Catholic Charities, the Women's Sanctuary, and they also have some transitional housing projects that they have in the area that help get women and children off the streets. Positive Tomorrows, you know, a school that helps homeless children go to school, because there's struggles. You can't just, if you're a chronically homeless family and have children, you know, trying to go to Fillmore Elementary or anything like that when you haven't taken a shower, or when you don't have food to eat. How can you expect a child to learn if they didn't have a healthy breakfast, or if they're not getting the nutrition they need in the evenings at home? So Positive Tomorrow is another great program. The Homeless Alliance, that's where my partner and I, we are officed at the Homeless Alliance. So we're right in the thick of things. Caseworkers can come down and ask us if someone goes missing. They have a direct line of communication to talk to us, and we can try to help them find if they're looking for somebody, or even if somebody does accept additional help. If we're out talking to a panhandler, or we find some chronically homeless individuals in camps, we can talk to them, and if they're ready to go right that minute, they get in the car, we give them a ride down to
Perfect.
to the intake specialist with the Homeless Alliance.
So did you ever expect when you joined the police department that you would become a world-class expert in social services?
No,
and
no,
the kinds of things that the city provides?
Yeah, well, I mean, 10 years. I've been with our department for 10 years, and I really think, you know, you go into it and you're in patrol, and you'd never heard of anything homeless outreach, but there was so many times when I was in patrol, and I remember being a young officer and running across people who were in their car, living in their cars, living in parks, living in tents, and what do you say to them? You're like, hey, they want you arrested for trespassing, so you either have to leave or be arrested. That was the option I would give them. And then now, you know, you talk to a few people, you find out what's available, you know what social services are out there, and when you approach them in a camp, you can talk to them, find out what their situation is, and let them know what program might fit them better, and encourage them. And like you said, I use the food, I use the coats, I use the dog food as an avenue to build trust, because the people have had so many negative experiences with officers that they will take those items, and they're like, man, an officer's never given me a meal before, or an officer's never given us dog food or offered us anything. So that's where that building the trust and getting them, and it'll take multiple contacts and over again. We have city phones that were provided to us, so we have cards. In my year of doing this job, I've handed out 1,500 business cards with my information and my partner Sergeant Garst's information, and it's a phone. Call us anytime you have something, anytime, because everybody's situation's unique, and I can't tell them what's going to help them out of homelessness. Only they know, and once they decide what that is, then I try to help them.
Then you were able to
accomplish
match
it.
up those resources, which
Yes.
is absolutely incredible. And Lieutenant, you were saying that this resource that we now have in our city has become so well known through the department. I mean, I think that's really a great story too.
Yes, when he talked about patrol officers and how a regular patrol officer will interact with a homeless person, a lot of times with patrol officers, they're dealing with so many other things, maybe bouncing from call to call to call, that they have a really limited amount of time and resources to point them to some sort of help, or to take them somewhere other than jail or detox. And so that's where a lot of times it seems like more of a negative interaction. But that's what the patrol officer has to work with. Well, now that we have these two officers that are a resource, I get phone calls, emails, almost, at least on a weekly basis. Some come from other members of the department, from some of the patrol divisions, that they have a homeless camp or they have a panhandling problem that they need dealt with. Some of them come from city council, from the different wards. I get calls from citizens wanting to know where can they donate food, where can they donate sleeping bags and coats. And so that gives the department a resource to say, here's the number to the hot officers. You can give them a call, or I will forward the email. And they're very quick to respond to that. And they know exactly what to do, how to handle it. And so it goes beyond that enforcement where, okay, you're trespassing, you go to jail. Okay, you're drunk, you go to detox. So it goes well beyond that now to where they've become, just these two officers have become an entire citywide resource to deal with.
It's a fabulous
homeless.
investment
Yes.
in being able to connect people with the services they need. So a couple of times I've heard the word panhandlers, and we've recently passed and are enforcing a median safety ordinance to address some of those issues. Bobby, have you seen any change at all? Do you have any anecdotal evidence of whether it's working or not?
Yeah, I think it really is around the I-240 corridor. You used to see on the turnarounds there, which would be considered a median. There would be a panhandler every day, every evening, and I'd go out and I make contact with every panhandler that I see when I'm driving around. When I go up Memorial, I-240, I-35, I-44, all the exits, we stop and we talk to them, and we find out what their situation is. Well, like I-240 now, there's not hardly anybody out around the area. A lot of the people that I have talked to have one specific guy that I know of. He just was like, well, I'm not panhandling anymore, and I got a job. He called me up. I got a job. I'd helped his wife get prescription eyeglasses and taken her to a couple different appointments and taking her to the Social Security office, because we'll help if they lose their Social Security card or birth certificates, IDs, that stuff that we'll help with as well. But back to the panhandling situation, it seems to be making a difference. And like I say, my biggest reason why I was against it is if you do talk to the panhandlers, there'll be times when accidents will happen while we're out there talking to the panhandlers, and people have a fender bender because they're paying attention to us, and the panhandlers will make a comment, I see that 3 or 4 times a day. And what it comes down to is the citizen in the car, instead of paying attention to driving, is either looking at the panhandler, thinking about giving them money, or has stopped at a green light when somebody wouldn't expect somebody to be stopping, and an accident would ensue. And like I say, there's no statistics kept on the state form for where you giving a panhandler money when this accident occurred, so it's hard for us to really trace that stat. But I said, if you get out there and you talk to the panhandlers, they'll tell you they see multiple accidents, and they're even most of them who have been doing it for a while have been hit by cars at some point.
But we sure hope that with this passage we can end up with some really good numbers about people's safety. And yet provide opportunities for people to get the services that they need. So I am so grateful to you both for coming down today. This is a really innovative program, and I just really want everybody to know that your Oklahoma City Police Department is working hard to be creative and thoughtful and innovative, and this is just a wonderful example of how we're reaching citizens and making a difference in people's lives. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you for having us.